Get up!
Glenn's bleeding to death! Someone call his wife and children!
They're not robots, Rick!
It's a figure of speech, Morty. They're bureaucrats. I don't respect them.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. I'm your host, Che Durena. If you haven't seen Rick and Morty, I don't know what you've been doing with your time. It's my favorite show, and I would say by far one of the best shows on TV. It's over the top, gross, hilarious, and incredibly inventive and original. I mean, if you haven't watched the show, I doubt you would be checking out this list, but if for whatever reason you haven't seen any of the show, I will warn you that there is a ton of spoilers in today's list of top 10 scary Rick and Morty theories. As always, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Also stick around to the end of the list because I'm going to be reading out some comments from the top 10 sunken ships video. Also, go to Most Amazing Top 10 on Facebook and Instagram. There is a ton of more content over there, and it's a great way to get to know myself and the other hosts a little bit better. Without taking any longer, let's get into this list. Also, check out our new channel tier list. We got a ton of stuff over there and we're ranking all these different things. There's also hosts from all the different channels coming together. It's kind of a cool crossover. Number 10. Starting out this list, we got Nothing Matters. For those of you who haven't watched Rick and Morty, a major part of the show is about how there are infinite universes, all with variations of our reality with sometimes slight, sometimes massive differences. This makes the main character Rick Sanchez reinforce to everyone that he meets that nothing matters. But the multiverse theory is based on real science. So that could mean that there could be universes with you in it doing the exact same thing but just 1 second off. Everything that you ever thought that you did was unique or exclusive was actually repeated on an infinite spectrum. That love and sadness are irrelevant because no matter what you do, the exact opposite is happening in another universe. Even if you try to be a good person, there's an alternate version of you doing something bad. That your existence and everyone else's is pointless because nothing is special in life, and Earth could just be an atom on the part of some pig's ass from a larger dimension. Hey, but don't get upset. At least we got tacos. Number 9. C-132 Morty is evil Morty. In the show, there's a super genius level Morty who is very evil and hellbent on killing all the Ricks in the multiverse. But what if the main Morty, or Morty C-132, is just a version of evil Morty who hasn't reached his full potential yet? If you don't watch the show, I'm gonna warn you, this might get very confusing. The main character Morty, also known as Morty C-137, is the only Morty other than evil Morty in the show who seems to showcase the same level of independence. Sure, he's a sniveling, whiny, spineless coward now, but each adventure with Rick brings him a little closer to being his own man and a lot closer to having a raging hatred for every Rick who ever was. There could be a chance that in a future episode we could see Morty C-132 team up with evil Morty or even take his place as the supervillain. Maybe Rick's lack of empathy is his grandson slash sidekick's breeding to become his own demise. Number 8. Clone Beth. In season 3 episode 9 of Rick and Morty, Beth has an existential crisis. She wants to move on and be her own person, but that would mean she needs to leave her family behind. However, Rick gives her a choice. She could leave her family and he would make the perfect clone of her, so no one would ever know she was gone. Now the theory is that Rick has already done this before the problem ever came up, so he could have a version of his daughter to go on adventures with. The idea is that whether Beth decided to stay or to leave, he wanted a version of his daughter that was more like him, a version of her that could keep the Sanchez legacy going long after he passed. So no matter what Beth chose, there was going to be a clone of her. He did this for the good of science and sci-fi hijinks. It's not a long shot to think that Rick would go behind someone's back and clone them for his own personal gain. I mean, the guy has done way worse. He made a universe and then enslaved a planet to power his car battery. Number 7. The Legion of Anti-Rick. So throughout the show there have been a few villains that have popped up and now they're just floating around the universe with a seething hatred for Rick. There's Zeep Zanthorpe from the car battery episode we just mentioned, who hates Rick for creating his people just to be slaves. There's Nebula, who is the leader of the Rick and Morty version of the Avengers known as the Vindicators. Rick in a blackout state set up a series of traps that killed all of the Vindicators while revealing their flaws just to prove a point. Nebula was the only one who survived. There is also Evil Morty, and even the devil himself has a grudge against Rick. Maybe separately these characters can't take down the alcoholic wonder, but together could come up with a master plan to finally kill Rick Sanchez. I don't think Rick would really care because he seems to be perfectly content with his own death. So if this supervillain team gets formed, they will need to find another way to do harm to the soulless scientist. Number 6. Rick doesn't love Morty. Something that pops up again and again in Rick and Morty is that even though Rick is the biggest dirtbag in the universe, he still has some love in his heart for his dear old grandson. But what if this is all just a ruse? Rick is the smartest man who has ever lived, and he needs Morty to come on adventures with him. So he might know in order to get the little guy to go against his best judgment and come along on these horrible adventures, a little manipulation is necessary. It seems like every time Rick is in trouble or Morty's about to put his foot down, it's Morty's soft spot that gets the better of him and forces him to dig his hands back into the trash. I wouldn't be surprised if all the heartfelt comments coming from Rick are just a ploy so he can get what he wants. Number 5. Rick's suicide. Now this one is actually pretty plausible. We've already seen Rick try to kill himself at the end of episode 3 in season 2 after he gets his heart broken by Unity for the second time. Rick also very rarely finds happiness throughout the show, and anytime there is a brief moment of joy, it usually is immediately crushed for comic relief. So we might see the whole series end with Rick having enough and putting an end to himself. If this was to happen, I wouldn't be surprised if Rick did it in some glorious way that wipes out him and all the other Ricks in existence. Maybe he thinks life would be better if everyone never met a Rick. Number 4. Baby Cronenberg. So in that one scene we just talked about where Rick seems like he's gonna come close to pulling the trigger on himself, he first kills a little crying creature. What is this small monstrosity? Well, people think that this thing could be a baby Cronenberg taken from the planet that Rick completely transformed into horrible monsters. Rick could have taken it in the hopes of finally curing the disease that he spread all over that version of Earth. Like a little side project, not because he feels bad, but because if he ever got turned into a Cronenberg monster, he would have the keys to turn himself back into a normal person. Rick's not that nice. This could be why he killed this creature right before he attempted his own suicide. There's no point that this little guy stays in stasis when Rick was just gonna off himself. In his last act, maybe he wanted to do something nice by sparing this abomination a horrible existence. Number 3. Unity is Beth's mom. Throughout the 3 seasons that the show has had, so far there has only been one entity that has ever been able to crack the icy shell that is surrounding Rick Sanchez's heart, and that has been Unity. And with us having very little info on who Beth's mother is, it could very well be the multi-minded being that was the one who gave birth to her. Unity can take control of almost any sentient being, and I can't imagine Rick would want to raise a child with anyone who wasn't on his level intellectually. This could be why in the Unity episode, she seemed to care more about Summer and Morty than Rick ever did. Her compassion could have come from the fact that those are her actual grandchildren. I'm not sure if a hive mind cares about offspring. We'll all have to wait until we're forcibly hooked up to an artificial intelligence by our robot overlords. Number 2. Jessica isn't as she seems. We all know Jessica is the sultry redhead who gives Morty wet dreams, but what if she's not just some hot chick put in place to highlight Morty's sexual inadequacies? There's a lot of theories on this one. Some people think that she might be an undercover Galactic Federation agent like Tammy that popped Berg person at their wedding. Others think she might be a hidden rival super genius who wants Rick's secrets. She could be using Morty's overpowered sex drive as a way to work herself into Rick's life and steal everything he's got. Or maybe I'm wrong on all this and she's just boobs in a butt. Number 1. Magic School Bus crossover. This one is by far the most far out there theory on the list. Some people think that Beth's long lost mother is Miss Frizzle from Magic School Bus. This of course is the biggest long shot in history. I could put up 20 points against Steph Curry before this would be realized. I mean, the Magic School Bus is a show for kids, it's about real science, and it comes nowhere close to having any sort of real profanity. Where Rick and Morty is one of the most over the top shows and will try to fend you and your whole family line in one sitting. But on the other hand, if anyone was going to have the power to seduce old Rick Sanchez, it might be a lady who has a school bus that rivals the power of his portal gun. And maybe the reason Morty is so in love with Jessica is because he takes after his grandfather and they both get googly over some smoking hot redheads. And out of all the theories, I want this one to be realized the most. The idea of Rick banging Miss Frizzle would give a bunch of millennials PTSD. Now I'm gonna hit up the comment section from the Sunken Ships video. Retro Sable Eye wrote, Gordon Lightfoot is an amazing artist, and his song about the Edmund Fitzgerald is one of the most haunting songs I've ever heard. Hey Retro, I still think he's lame. Next. Lee Tatum wrote, damn dude, take a history class. No thanks Lee, I'm gonna remain ignorant. And Creative Gamer wrote, wreck of Edmund Fitzgerald intensifies. I love mean references and this one is great. Thank you so much. Well everyone, that's our list, and I want to say thank you so much for tuning in today and checking it out. If you have any theories that you felt should have been on the list, make sure you write them in the comments section. Also, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. And follow Most Amazing Top 10 on Facebook and Instagram. There's so much more content over there, and it's a great way to get to know myself and the other hosts a little bit better. Until next time, I've been Che Durena, and now I'm gonna need to binge watch all of Rick and Morty over again if you guys want a part 2 to this.